Welcome, more gamers. My name is Doug with 2 Plus Stuff, and today I have kind of a different sort of video, more chill, just kind of chatting with you, and I hope that this is something you can listen to while you're painting or driving and just kind of hanging out. I had a really cool experience. A very new kind of thing happened to me, and I wanted to talk about it. You see, this all started because I was doing a live stream, and I believe I was playing Vermintide. And I had mentioned there that I have never played a pen and paper RPG, like, D&D style or Pathfinder, name any one of them. I had never done anything like that. And several people, I believe 4 of them actually, reached out to me afterwards and were like, hey, I'm running this group, you can jump right in. And scheduling conflicts and stuff kind of came up with a bunch of them. One group wanted to, they do a show almost, kind of like... I don't remember the name of the Matt Mercer show, but where they record stuff and that kind of thing. And I know that I didn't want it to be recorded simply because I wanted to be a nobody. I wanted to show up as a new player at a game and have that first time experience without feeling like I have to be on, All that stuff out of the way. One viewer who has been incredibly supportive dang near the entire time I've had this channel. The username is Spezia Poet, shows up in the chat very, very frequently. Thank you so much, buddy. Reached out to me and invited me to hang out with him and his friends of just a group of amazingly awesome people. And we did a little one-off adventure playing D&D 5th edition. And I kind of want to talk about that experience because first of all, it just meant a lot to me. Just hanging out with people, being new at something, it just really meant emotionally a lot to me. But also, it gave me a lot of context, understanding, and excitement for talking about Age of Sigmar's Soulbound, which is the Cubicle 7 role-playing game for Age of Sigmar. So let's talk about that day. This was back on the 19th. It was basically just a Zoom call with, 7 other people, something like that. Bad at math, but essentially, because some of them were couples and they were in different rooms. So it was a one-off adventure. The simple part of the story was there was a local baron who his caravans are getting raided, and it looks like it's by goblins. We need to figure out why and put a stop to it. Right? It starts in the tavern. We're all just there. We all took the little piece of paper tab that was need a job with the number on it, right? Outside the door. That's all we all got there. And we got hired. The next day we slept and went out for our little adventure. One of the things that was interesting for me was I'm trying to think of how to word this. I've never worked on a collaborative narrative experience before. Usually with Age of Sigmar proper, or even Warcry games, you build the story before you come to the table as to why these two forces are playing. You play your game. And then afterwards, you talk about what happened, right? You fictionalize or storyize, that's my word for you, what happened, right? Epic last stands and all this kinds of stuff. But you're not actively adding narrative new elements because the forces are already set and on the table. Whereas with the pen and paper RPG style stuff, they were. We were in the tavern and one player is asking, how come, people are going in and out of the back room, but they're not carrying any food, and that way, one character got kind of on this super sneaky track of I'm gonna figure out what's going on there, and just things to explore. Very cool stuff. It gave me a lot of context for understanding when you are a GM or a game master, whoever's running the RPG, what kind of information you need to create a scene, how players can explore. Again, I can mentally understand the function of the game and how the rules interact, but there is that storytelling element that takes it in a new direction and puts it in context. I think is probably the best wording that I can use for it. So I have my little notes over here, so sorry if I look to the right. Again, one-off adventure helping the Baron. For me personally, as far as what character I was playing, there was a bit of miscommunication between me and the host about how much prep I need. I know that I needed dice, so I went out and got some cool looking ones. I like these, that kind of stuff. But I didn't know that I was responsible for building my own character. I just assumed because it was a demo game, there'd be a pre-made one. So 2 seconds before, after the Zoom call started and right before our adventure started, I was oh, I don't have a character. Crap. And I just kind of Googled up one real quick. And so I ended up being a a dwarven cleric. We started at level 5, so he has some abilities and that kind of stuff. And I will say, at first, I was very dry when I played him. I just kind of did very mechanical things. The truth is because I didn't understand what I as a player needed to come prepared with and knowing things like a lot of the spells and that kind of stuff. I didn't quite use until the latter half of the game, but that's cool. I mean, honestly, you start in a tavern, you don't need 1,000 abilities. I'm not trying to like mega charm or smite anything. I just want to talk to people, and I'm rolling checks, and so I'm learning the mechanics as I go. Had a wonderful time. I think highlight moments was I failed at playing darts with a shady soldier. What else did I do? I had this epic battle moment where basically at one point I had 2 actions that I could do. So I threw a hand axe at one goblin and then crushed another with a hammer as I was running up. Very Lord of the Rings moment. I absolutely loved it. I did get to use some of my prayers and abilities to basically resuscitate a player who had gone to 0 health during our last little boss fight, and that kind of stuff. My point is, I had a wonderful time. I feel like I didn't use all the abilities that I had at my disposal because it was a lot of overwhelming information for me, but it was very rewarding to just sit in the early parts of the games and just listen, okay? Because if you're just listening, seeing how, okay, here's the scene that's been created for us. This player over here asked the question. Here's the check that they need to make based on that. So now I'm kind of putting connections of how the mechanics of the game work. Also, like what kinds of scenarios and stuff, our game master favors, and is how he points us down paths and that kind of thing. How much of it is left open to us as far as like when we all want to go to bed so we can start the actual adventure, right? Because everything before then, if you meet in the tavern, it's just like prologue, right? The adventure starts when you wake up and you get next to the wagon. One thing that was interesting and I was not expecting to experience, our GM had a webcam and he pointed it down, and I've always kind of wondered, like when it comes to D&D, why they have like the grid paper and miniatures if nobody's, if everything's verbal storytelling, why do the miniatures matter? And he actually had us like with physical locations of where we were guarding the wagon. And I thought that was really cool. Like I had never, like I said, never had a reason, but it was very cool. And I liked it quite a bit. So that makes me just want to randomly go buy some Reaper miniatures. But that's all there is to that one. But it was really cool. I don't know. Like I said, again, my king word for this experience was context. I'm understanding why people, first of all, love this kind of stuff because it was a lot of fun. As far as the group itself, I really enjoyed it because people did role-playing things. Like my character would do blank, but nobody got like cringy as far as like acting inappropriate because their character is inappropriate. You know what I mean? Like we were all just people playing a game, and it was a wonderful time. What else was there? Everyone wanted to follow the story. There was no guy who was like, I killed the Baron who gave us the job. And you're like, okay, cool, thanks. I really, really like it. So what I want to kind of transition to here is like, that was my experience. Had a wonderful time. Took like 3 hours on the nose, I think. We're doing another one next month. I just had a wonderful time. And it meant the world to me, to be perfectly honest. That somebody was listening and was like, this is an experience that Doug needs to have, and facilitated it schedule wise, but also stuff to make me comfortable. Like I said, I don't want to be recorded, just because I didn't want to feel like I had to be a character, 2+ stuff. I get to be Doug. And so, the minute that experience was over, I went on a YouTube bender and basically searched everything D&D. I got subscribed to like 8 different channels of people who did a great job of explaining things and kind of breaking down the setting and stuff. One of the things that I do still struggle with when it comes to D&D is the concept that it's more of a mechanical game format than it is like a setting. You can obviously buy storyline books or expansions that have very set places, but honestly, if your GM is like, actually, no, these are all lizard people, there's no humans in this setting. I mean, that's just what it is. You know, I mean, your GM creates this world and then you tell the story within it. And that's a little bit hard for me because I'm, as you could probably tell by the 2+ stuff, I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to lore. I like to just read it all and, you know, get to know places and people and that kind of stuff. And there is that to a limited extent. But at the end of the day, the GM just does whatever he wants. And that's also cool. It's just a different kind of cool, right? So I went on this YouTube bender about character creation and storytelling and how do you do, you know, meaningful moments and how do GMs, you know, basically yes and their players into letting them do what they want, but also corralling them towards the story that they wanted to tell, or at least some semblance of it. And again, I can't bring up the word enough, contextualizing everything, because the guys over at Cubicle 7, Emmett, I believe, is their lead team member. Awesome people, all of them. They sent me a digital copy of Soulbound when that game first launched, and I did do videos about like Brightspear and that kind of stuff. But because I didn't have the context of what a role-playing game was like, I was lacking a lot of stuff. I was lacking context when it comes to how do I like there. I'm going to redo some of those videos. I'm sorry, this is very hard to word. But there's a difference between my style of just talking over some important beats of a place, like talking about this is Brightspear, this is where it's located, this is why it's important, you know, those kinds of things, versus, say, disseminating information in a way that is helpful for both game masters to create the setting in terms of what's going on around you sensory-wise, and then also for players to understand what are some clues, what are some things or narrative leads that I could follow and get engaged with. And I feel like those are two different styles. And now that I understand that, I'm so excited to get into making content again for Soulbound, where it's like, here's what you need to know about the Mortal Realms. Or here's everything about the Mortal Realms. But honestly, here's the nugget that really matters to you and your character, right? You don't need to know about every single realm. You just need to know about the one you're in. And that's basically it. You know, unless your adventure takes you to multiples. It gave me a lot of context to understand, like, okay, when players are interacting with other NPCs, what are some things that those NPCs would know, love, hate, fear, right? Like, those kinds of things. And it gave me, like I said, a lot of understanding for world building from the RPG perspective. Because world building can be different based on what kind of game you're playing, right? And so I thought that was really, really interesting. And so, yeah, like I said, I went on this YouTube bender and basically was looking up videos from major content creators for D&D stuff. And the reason I did that was because it gave me a lot of insight into what are questions that people are asking, right? If someone who's never played D&D before, and all these guys are already spent years trying to get people into them, they probably have a backlog of questions of, hey, today we're just going to talk about role-playing or building a cleric. That was one of the videos that I found right away. It's actually why I chose to be a cleric. I thought it was really cool, and giving insights into that, right? So that kind of stuff I thought was really interesting. Then there's also obviously mechanical type videos as far as like the game mechanics is what I mean, like character creation, you know, XP and how all that stuff works. And so I put together a massive document of stuff that I am so excited to get into when it comes to talking about Age of Sigmar Soulbound. And so, anyway, I just wanted to explain why you're going to be seeing a bit more of that on the channel. Quite frankly, because of 2020 and the way that 2021 is looking, not a lot of games Age of Sigmar are being played. And in fact, locally, there's not really any Age of Sigmar scene. There is, oddly enough, a Warcry and Underworld scene, 40k, and Star Wars Legion is a big one. That's actually going to be my next video. Little spoiler for you. But, yeah, not much Age of Sigmar here. But I love the setting more than I've ever loved the game. And that's just the truth. That's honestly kind of why I cycle through armies and am not terribly good at it. It's because the game is secondary as a social aspect, but I do love the story aspects of everything. And so diving more headlong into these RPG type things is exactly what I want to do. And I hope that you'll join me for that. So anyway, there's nothing to this other than I just wanted to share my experience. I had a wonderful time. It clicked in my brain as to why people love that genre of game. And eventually, I wouldn't mind doing like a GM thing, but I wanna get more comfortable with it, right? I had one tag-along experience. I want to do a little bit more before I GM something. But that's definitely stuff that you can look forward to seeing coming on the channel. So if there's a specific topic or kind of content that you would want surrounding Soulbound, I mean, honestly, or any kind of role-playing game, I just like Soulbound because I like the Age of Sigmar universe. Go ahead and throw in the comments down below. I'd love to answer it and explore that with you because, again, it's one of those things, there's so much to learn when it comes to, anytime you jump into a new hobby or a new kind of game, there's a lot to learn. So quite frankly, your questions help me by choosing a direction. Be like, there's so much to learn. I can ask a million questions. And if one viewer's like, hey, how does this work? I'd be like, cool, we'll start there and we'll figure the rest out. And that's pretty much how, 2+ stuff works as a channel. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful new year and I look forward to seeing you in my next lore video. Happy wargaming. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that video. It was made possible by the folks over here to the left. These are my top supporters over here on YouTube and on Patreon that keep this channel going. If you'd like to learn more about how to become a supporter and get some cool things in the process, like exclusive pictures and interactions with me and get your questions answered here on the channel, go ahead and click any of the links down below or the join button on the community page over on YouTube. Regardless of your choice, I wanted to thank you so much for joining me with this video, and I look forward to seeing you in my next one. Happy wargaming.